Welcome to a commentary track for my video on the MACROSS Do You Remember Love movie, as we talk about Here's Why It's Cool. This is a fan edit, so I jokingly kind of call it the perfect edition just because, for me personally, it's the perfect edition. I threw it together to show a friend of mine who had gone through ROBOTECH with me over this past summer. And we'd been friends most of our lives, and he'd never seen ROBOTECH, and so over a period of weeks we got together to watch my videos, every time with a couple of beers, and we'd try to go a few hours with each session, and he really fell in love with it. And we text each other memes now and everything, and he really just appreciates the whole story in a way that I think if you're watching this video, and certainly listening to this commentary, you also appreciate this show and the storyline of it and these characters as much as any characters in fiction or, certainly in anime. I decided to open it with this cutscene from a Sega Saturn game. I believe it was Sega Saturn. It was a shooter. And I ran into this cutscene off of 20th Anniversary DVD that had a bunch of different cutscenes from shows, movie trailers from MACROSS. And I always wanted to have a version of the movie that had this as its opener, so I made it. You can see the laser from space from the Zentradi just cutting the Prometheus in half. And as much as I love the Prometheus, it's gone from the movie and shows up again a little later. I made these subtitles myself. They're probably a little too big, and I don't know if I got all the translations right. I kind of pieced it together from some different sources. But that thing where they're color-coded for Max is blue and Kakazaki is, Ben is green. I tried to color-code it and put them all over the screen, kind of like those old Animego DVDs or fan subs, as we used to call them back in the 90s when I was a teenager. In this version of Macross, it seems apparent that this is the first time that Skull Squadron has seen the SDF-1. And as they rendezvous with it right as it makes its big escape, the Zentradi take out Earth right away in this version. And I needed to make a transition from that cutscene into the actual opening of the movie. So I got this shot here from, I think it's episode 19 of Macross Delta, where some of the characters go through the history of protoculture and music as a weapon specifically. And hopefully it's not too jarring. But as we introduce our bad guys, the Zentradi, we see they look a little different than they did in the Macross TV series or in, in ROBOTECH. And of all the little redesigns that they did for this movie, I gotta be honest, I think the Zentradi are my least favorite part of those redesigns. Especially since they carry it forward, and Exodor, who is a continuing presence in Macross 7 especially, and then also showed up in the Zettai Live movie in 2021. That big brain head, it always throws me off. It always did as a kid, too. And that's why I joke in my last ROBOTECH video that his head looks like broccoli now. And I just think that as good a designs as they are on their own, I prefer my TV version of Britai with his, bushy eyebrows and blue face. So here we're at the proper opening of the movie, and this is a great opening shot of the SDF-1 of the Macross, and that kind of brings me to the first time I saw this show. I think I mentioned in my ROBOTECH videos how our friend Bash, who is my brother's totally awesome and somewhat mysterious best buddy way back in our younger years. He had some kind of store, some video rental place. It was a secret, hole in the wall where he was able to procure just all these different animes for us. Fist of the North Star, which probably traumatized me when I watched it at 9 or 10 years old and really shouldn't have. And, all kinds of cool anime cartoons like this that we, at the time, called Japanimation. And this Macross movie was released at the time, I think it was under the Family Home Entertainment label too, and it was edited down. It had a solid half hour cut out of it. Oh, just some of these shots of the SDF-1 are so good. When you see it from all these different angles, I mean, every frame in this movie is worth pausing and going back to. I think in the effort of looking for shots I could use for my Robotech videos, I probably went through and frame by framed this movie a couple of times. There's the back of the bridge you can see in the background, and the whole bridge tower. And just seeing these guys take off in their strike armor is one of my favorite parts. Before we zoom over the Armor 1 on the arm of the SDF-1 onto its leg and get a peek in these big windows at MACROSS City itself. I saw this movie when I was about 8 years old, and Bash had brought it over the same night that he brought over Volume 2 and 3. So to me, when I'm first watching it, we had just gone through that adventure and kind of the tragedy of what happens with Roy. And then we put this in, and none of us really knew what it was. We just saw that it had the SDF-1 on the cover, is what Bash said when he brought it over. So we put it in, and clearly it was, Robotech. It was the same saga, this Macross saga. But everything was different, and they all had different names, and the music didn't quite play the same. And just as an 8-year-old kid, it was really confusing to me. And especially where the Zentradi all talked like this, and were scared of the micro-humans. Now, at this point in my life, I actually really love that English dub, and I'll probably throw in some clips of it as we go, because there's some amazing lines and line readings from it that my brother Matt and I still quote at each other to this day. So as they come along, I'll show you. This Minmay concert, though, I was really entranced by it and really liked... I liked her music in Robotech as a kid, and still do. But to see actual Minmay from Macross music, and here's some of these songs like Xiao Pai Lo here coming up, these songs would get stuck in my head. And even Oboete Masuka that comes up at the end, her big song for the finale. I can remember waiting for my mom to she was a school teacher, and I'd be waiting for her to get done, and I'm waiting in the van for her, and humming that song to myself when I was 8. Like, all these songs are so catchy. They've been in my head, rent-free for, what am I, 44? So, yeah, coming up on, 35, almost 40 years themselves. And it just goes to show you how timeless this all is. So here's Minmay in this version where, I guess, according to, if you're paying attention in Macross Flashback 2012, she left her parents and in a big huff and a big fight, and she talks about it later with Hikaru. And she just showed up on the SDF-1 and became a big star. There wasn't a Miss Macross contest as far as we know, but maybe there was. That's what made this movie version so different. There were things in it that I see that are familiar story beats. And at the time when I was 8 years old, I didn't realize this was a thing where they do a movie version of a TV show. So like an example I always think of is Escaflowne, which is a great TV series, and I prefer the TV series over the really good movie. But the movie was just weird with, it was a little darker tone and had these different redesigns. And I guess this is just a thing that they do, especially in Japan. And it's cool. But this concert, I always wanted to go to a concert like this with all the holograms and stuff. And here we are, 2025, and sometimes you get something that neat, but usually it's a little more of a standard fare. I love all the different advertisements they have in this, too, all the sponsorships, because you see McDonald's all the time, you see Coca-Cola, there was Honda earlier for cars, and of course there's the famous missile that comes by at the end of the screen later that we can point out. And now we get to kick off in the battle and see Skull Squadron in action. So it looks like, at this point, Hikaru's rather inexperienced, but these guys have been flying together for a little while, and there's like Skull, Angel, and Apollo that they keep talking about. Lisa keeps calling Lisa. I'm going to use their names interchangeably this entire time, and that's just something that I've been doing my entire life. So forgive me if I refer to any of them by their Robotech names. It's all in my head. Some of these shots I used when I tried to expand on the big battle in episode 27 of Robotech when I made those videos, and I decided to open up the second part of it with just a gigantic display of every spare battle scene I could find from different Macross media that would fit. There's all these, I always figured those are reflex missiles, or reactive weaponry that they're using, reaction. is what they called it in MACROSS. In Robotech, they called it reflex weaponry, and I think I read somewhere that that was a typo. but the fact that they're actually using space physics here, and you can see as they're trying to slow down their inertia, and here's Rick who's still getting thrown around by just the sheer power of these Valkyries. And I always thought it was kind of funny. I was just joking with my brother the other day. He goes up against these three guys, launches all those MACROSS missiles in that Itano circus, and he almost gets killed by them. And he just sort of is like, oh, leaving it up to you, Max. And then Max is like, yep, got it. And when Max takes out this guy here in a second, just rips him out of his battle pod. If you slow motion it, you realize what Max does is he just blows up the helmet, and it's the decompression that makes that guy's head just turn to spaghetti. Anyway, then Rick needs to show up. Hikaru. See, I'm going to be doing this the whole time, sorry. And as he goes after these guys, again, there's more Itano circus. He launches all those missiles. Not one of them gets it, but he shoots it with the gun pod. Yatta! I did it! It's great seeing Skull 1 looking all cool in space. Even Roy's coloring. I'm like, why isn't he wearing a purple outfit? I don't get it. Again, as a kid, it was confounding. But here they're sort of redoing the Battle of Saturn from Episode 6. It certainly looks better than it ever did. And there we get to see the armored Valkyrie. I like these little Zentradi ships that look like they have kind of miniature main guns on them, just tearing their way through destroids. There's the monster, the Koenig monster, firing back. And they're fighting above the moon of Saturn, Titan. And as these, I'm glad that in this version, in this movie, they don't use the battle pods too much. The battle pods are kind of silly looking when you think about it. But you get all these space power armors on this shot here. Kind of their first interaction in this movie, but we get the idea that they don't like each other at all. And there's a lot more heavy-handedness in the sexism in that, in MACROSS versus Robotech. And especially in this shot right here, in the scene. And all the time, it's a subject, and they say little quips to each other in that regard of you know, her being a woman and trying to take orders. And even the line from the Clash of the Binoids version, you know, that English version where she's like, "You chauvinist, you disobey my orders." But it's nice in the Japanese language version where you hear Claudia's voice. Oh, that guy right there with the artist, that's Shoji Kawamori. And he actually shows up once or twice in the Macross TV series, too, in the background. Usually he's got a, you know, pad of paper and a pen, drawing all the time, as Shoji Kawamori is wont to do. This poor guy that falls upside down. That girl looked like she was wearing Minmei's dress from Episode 6. What's that? A man and a woman? A man and a woman. Yes, the dub will forever be stuck in my head. It must be proto-culture. Look how great these shots are, and the animation's so smooth. I mean, this whole movie was a showcase of animation that was top of the line until just a couple of years later when Akira sort of beats it out as one of the nicest, smoothest animes of all time, certainly from the 80s. The shot of the Macross transforming. So cool. I actually was lucky enough 10 or 12 years ago to get the, I think it's the Yamato version of this toy, of this Do You Remember Love? And it transforms just like that. That's one of the great things about the show, is everything transforms as advertised. Love the different angles that they choose here. So of course the gravity control system is destroyed, and now the gravity of Titan itself, of the moon, is pulling everything towards the planet. And so it just kind of kicks up velocity. That arcade machine right there, that looks just like the one that Max and Maria fight over in the TV series. So there goes Minmei. And this is just another great display of Rick, of Hikaru, going to rescue her, and even as he won't let anything stop him. I love these shots of him just using his Valkyrie. He doesn't care. He cuts right through cars exploding around him, goes right through the overpass. And he's just so determined. It makes him such a cool hero. And these shots where we see her on the screen. And I like how the hands are redesigned in the movie, where they actually look more robotic. instead of like big cartoony Mickey Mouse glove hands. And as he protects Minmay, you see him like fold the hands around her right as they crash. And then this is weird seeing the kind of Valkyrie with all the radar stuff on it instead of like one of the cat's eye units from the TV show. Again, this is one of those times where every shot right here is worth pausing to take a look at all the different angles and all the detailing in the Macross. This version that I made this out of, I was able to get a copy of the Blu-rays. So the sound has all been tweaked, and there's a couple of added sound effects. And of course, the picture quality is second to none. Like, they've really brought everything out. All the colors look great. Everything looks sharp and crisp. And like I said, the sound has been tweaked as well. They added a couple of sound effects in this version, and they did a heck of a lot better job of it than for the Robotech Blu-rays, where they just, I don't know, they used some random sound library. So that's when I made my videos. I used the old sound from the old DVD releases, and had to layer it underneath the Blu-ray picture. And it was as painstaking as it sounds, and hopefully if you go back and watch my Robotech videos, y'all appreciate it. I think one or two of you left comments about it. But and of course, here we get to mimic when Rick and Minmay, or Hikaru and Minmay, were trapped in the bottom of the STF-1. In that version, it was for almost 2 weeks. And in this one, it's just going to be for 3 days. But I think that's enough for a couple of young, attractive people to somewhat fall in love with each other. But Minmay probably got pretty lucky that Hikaru's such a kind-hearted guy. It's fun how nervous he is about it. He's very starstruck in this version. But I know that they did age up everybody's character designs just a little. I think it's all very subtle things as far as just facial proportions and things like that. It's probably for the best because, Minmay being 16, I guess in Robotech isn't the biggest problem in the world, but feels a little more problematic these days, despite the cultural differences between the West and Japan and that. But none of it's heinous or anything. But the fact that, so he just had her sign like a napkin or a handkerchief, and of course that's going to come up a little bit later in the movie in a poignant moment. I love the Valkyrie's arm and the background paintings. Again, everything is, if you just pause it and take a look, it's all pretty amazing stuff. As a kid, I like his spacesuit now, but as a kid I was wondering, like, why does he have bumblebee detailing on his stuff, all the black and yellow? And of course you get to see the reason why here in a bit when you see how reflective it is. Totally makes sense that if you eject in space, you're going to want all that reflection to, for the rescue teams to come and find you. It's really telling with Minmay that her first attitude about being trapped is that she doesn't have to work. You almost feel bad for her for the schedule that she probably has for rehearsals and songwritings and everything. I mean, that was almost an in-joke in the TV series, is how much she constantly falls asleep. Every time her and Hikaru get together, she basically falls asleep on him in the cockpit of the fan jet on the way to Yokohama, or when she comes to visit him in the hospital. And even when they're trapped underneath in the STF-1, before her life got all busy. It's like she feels comfortable enough with him that she falls asleep. I know, I always took it as a cute sign. Oh, there you go. There's some fan service for you. And of course he is. He's all embarrassed about it. But it's such a beautiful scene with just as the ship pulls away from Titan, they're away from its gravity pull. And so now everybody's weightless, as you would be in space. And it's cute that he gets to teach her how to maneuver in gravity, because he's had all the training in the world, of course, and he has the thrusters on the back of his spacesuit. So he gets to cheat a little bit that way. But it's great that he's got all the reflection on his, bumblebee parts of his spacesuit. Then the luminescence of her amazing outfit really make the entire area shine. And of course, there's a lot of subtext there about just making her angelic, and that's kind of her superpower, is just the inner light that she has that shines and just overwhelms everyone and everything around her. It's really beautiful and kind of a great subtle way to show Minmay. Oh, there's the tuna fish that makes its cameo appearance. And of course, we get a Minmay doll, where we get to see a couple of those. If they ever actually made those, it'd be nice to have, though. So some of the stuff was, this whole scene, there's Coca-Cola again. This whole scene was cut out of the Clash of the Binoids part for obvious upcoming reasons. I really didn't make any visual edits to this movie when I was putting together this perfect edition, and trust me, part of me wondered if I would, should keep it a little more PG or not, but all of this seems innocent enough, at least for anime, that I just decided to keep it all around, and, it's not the worst thing in the world. I've never known anybody to complain about it, but I know you worry about keeping things family friendly. So now she's put on that extra dress that they saw floating around while she lets her other one air out, I guess. Maybe it needs the battery to recharge, the glowing, I don't know. It's funny they have to strap themselves in to sleep, just like real astronauts. Yeah, it's like you get the moment where you see him, like, he goes to check on her and he almost kind of goes to make a move, but then really thinks better of it because he's just happy that she's happy. And that's the way it should be in a relationship. These beautiful shots of Saturn, the fleet hiding on the other side of it from the SDF-1. And every now and then, this is another one of those shots I was able to kind of steal and use into my Robotech videos as I was expanding on all of that story. Yeah, here's more example of the Zentradi. Again, it's kind of my least favorite part of all the redesigns in this show. And the fact that it carried forward, too, where you get a lot of Zentradi and the rest of Macross showing up, looking just... I get the idea that they're trying to make them look more alien, but it's the fact also that all their technology behind them, like there's so much organic stuff, and I don't know, it's fine, and it does its job showing that these are bad guys and they're different. But it's like they're a little too different for a species that's supposed to be basically genetically identical to humans, and that they all go back to this common ancestry. But I do like the Zentradi outfits, and their space armor is cool, their weapons all look cool. And this one, they got these riot shields here. And it's always been hilarious that they're afraid of this tiny little doll. It's like they don't know what to make of it. It's almost like we'd be afraid of a spider or something and you just don't know what it's going to do, if it's going to jump at you or, even though it's so much smaller than you. But yeah, the way the music feels, it's a really almost subtle thing in the Macross TV series where Britai and Exodor all the time are just like, it makes their head spin and their stomach feel weird when they see Micronians interact or they hear music. And by the time you get to Macross Delta, they make a big deal about the fact that music is this weapon and that sound waves and fold waves affect things and stuff. But originally they were just kind of theorizing that it's just culture shock. Either way, it probably would be really effective against an alien culture. Remember, I used that shot for when Mayor Tommy and his wife are calling for the police when they're getting robbed by giant Zentradi. I do kind of like their outfits. They're cool pleated spacesuits where the shoulders are all pleated like that. I'm trying to remember. I think this scene might have been another one that was cut out of Clash of the Binoids, probably for time or something like that. But Roy's voice is hilarious in the dub, in that old Hong Kong dub, because he kind of sounds like a very proper Northeastern kind of guy, where he's speaking a little highfalutin for, like he's from a well-to-do part of Massachusetts or something. It almost sounds like some guy from NPR or something. So here we get the only clue about her past romance and Carl Reber, which this scene I was lucky enough to be able to snag and use in my Robotech videos, because it just kind of illustrates Lisa's feelings and her heart. And you get the fact she was very young back then. I mean, she's already only 24 or something. But yeah, she's a person who she walled off her heart after that, and especially being in the military, and most of the men around her are in the military, she doesn't want to get involved in any of them. She focuses on her career. And it's paid off because she's the first officer of the whole ship at such a young age. So anyway, here you get Minmei's backstory. And she's talking about arguing with her parents and how she just is like, okay. And she basically ran away from home. And now here she is and she's achieved her dreams. But what happened to her family? So here it's interesting too, because in this version, especially where I have that opening from the video game where you actually get to see the Zentradi attack, Minmay asks Hikaru, she says, I hope my mom and dad are all right. And he's surprised that maybe they're not on board the ship. He almost hopes they are because he knows the truth. And when she says they're on Earth, he's like, ooh, yeah, Earth. And she finally bravely asks, hey, do you know what happened to the Earth? Oh, well, we're getting a lot of interference. We get our signals jammed. And she's like, no, tell me the truth. And he just mentions that with all that bombing, who can say? But he says, don't worry about it. They've already been in space for 5 months. In another month, they'll be back to the Earth. And so in this version of the story, we have that underlying tension with all the characters of what did happen to the Earth. None of them know. They're all worried about it, and little do they know they're the last humans left. And I think the damage is supposed to be even worse in this movie than it was in the TV series, where there were, like 1% of the population survived or something like that. So, of course, he switches the subject to love scenes and kissing. Something I'm sure he's been waiting for 2.5, 3 days to get around to talking about with her. But she thinks it's very cute and obviously likes him at this point, and certainly trusts him for looking after her. And she's more than willing to tease him a little bit extra today. So this shot where she's so seductive, I put that at the end of the Season's Greetings episode 35 to sort of imply that that night was particularly special for both of them. For reasons that hopefully are obvious, even though I left it open to interpretation, but that's certainly my opinion. Is it's probably when they finally really show how much they care about each other. Let's put it that way. But I thought this worked out perfectly, even for kind of ending that episode for the TV series, where he's just looking kind of surprised and amazed, and are you sure you want to do this? And yeah, she was sure. She was sure. But finally the gravity gets restored, fortunately not all at once, but it creates this beautiful little moment, which again is the subtext of, you kiss the right person, you kiss that amazing person, and it just feels like you're floating on air. And then you get this embarrassment. Here, there's some of these weird character designs like that. It makes me wonder if they're the animators' friends or some of the producers or something, but you get some of these character designs for background people that look all too real, and you just got to think that they're cameos of some kind. That, I don't know, maybe I should research more. Here you really get the full extent of what their relationship is like at this point. But it's always one of the most endearing parts of their relationship is the fact that they don't get along, that they don't like each other like at all. But, they have their own romantic tension underneath it all, especially as they grow to respect each other. And I think that's why their relationship is ultimately much more healthy than whatever was between him and Minmay. In this version, there's Kyle, or, Kaifun. But he's her brother in this version instead of her cousin, which is probably better because it looks like he's looking after her and not such a sociopath. Oh, this right here, this version in the English dub of it is one of the best. And this is one of the lines that my brother and I say to each other all the time. Tell me, Hikaru, did you make love to her? And he's like, no, I didn't. What? And you call yourself a man? Yeah, even Max is like, you need to take responsibility. Don't be such a liar. But it gives a real warm moment for Ben, too, for Kakazaki. Yeah, there it is. You call yourself a man? Baka. Idiot. It's nice that we get a little scene with these three, Sammy, Vanessa, and Kim, they almost act as these muses. There's like a Greek choir in the background, always commenting on Lisa's relationship especially, and every now and then they comment on Claudia and Roy. But that was kind of their main purpose almost, between that and, comedic things and just filling out the bridge crew. But I'm glad they all get a moment in this movie too. I always had kind of a thing for Vanessa. I think I even mentioned in the Robotech videos. That was my thing about girls with glasses, especially when I was younger. This is cool where you get to see Minmei's, I guess that's her apartment. The whole design of Macross City in this movie is so much cooler than in the TV show. Because in the TV show, they're just all on layered tiers of, an empty chunk of the SDF-1 that was being unused. And you get the idea it's in the leg. But in this one, it's very much in the leg, and it's part of the design of the whole ship. That's a great shot of her just kind of being sick of life, sick of tabloids. As much as she likes that she achieved her dreams, she feels like she's missing something. Especially now that she, in her mind anyway, she's found true love and what, it's like to have someone who's genuine and actually authentically cares about you. Which is definitely what Hikaru is. Here's Roy sort of forcing them to sit together. I think he really is just trying to make Rick relax, and certainly cares to make Lisa relax because Lisa's Claudia's friend and Roy and Claudia are together. And so Roy's like, yeah, we got to ease this tension. You guys are bickering all the time. This is ridiculous. Come on, Misa, Hayase, what's that look on your face? And this is where some of the sexism stuff comes in. He takes another drink. Yeah, Roy really had, because even in Macross Zero, he's taking shots out of a flask and stuff. He had a crutch to lean on where he's dealing with his own stress. But, it's probably a good thing that he did this because it, in some ways, sort of gets Hikaru and Misa to, maybe consider in the back of their minds anyway to sort of just get along and drop all of the, pretense between them. Roy, he definitely is aggressive, especially when it comes to women. I don't know if his advice is very good, but it's definitely the kind of advice that your drunk friend gives you when he's had a few too many. But he's certainly all man, and it's sort of it's at least cute with him and Claudia, because they're already going out. If she was a random person, that would probably not be the best thing. But it makes you really, it makes the two of them and their relationship really endearing. And certainly when you get a lot of scenes like that, because they have just a few moments together in Macross, in the TV show, it makes it all the more tragic when, that inevitable thing comes up. So that's obviously him getting a call from Minmei saying, you should come meet me. And of course he's like, my family fell ill. I need to go see my sick family. And Roy's like, their family? Because Roy knows the truth. He's like, I think his whole family is supposed to be dead. Because Roy and him being close, Roy would definitely know that Rick, Rick, that Hikaru doesn't have any family, and what happened to his father a long time ago. And I assume in this version, just like in the TV show, that's where Roy was trying to coax him into coming and joining the service. So here you get the one thing that shows this movie's age, and that's their outfits. I think the high collar stuff is pretty cool, and he looks pretty great in his vest, I guess. And her clothes are really cute. I like her glasses, of course, but her hair has that 80s, the ponytail on the side, which is just adorable. And I remember when I was a kid, that was definitely a look that you'd see around. And one that, I don't know, even as a little guy, was always attractive to me. But here, I think part of the reason for the scene, too, is just to show you all the different culture, all the life that the Micronians have, that the Microns have, the humans. Because it's important to see all of this in order to contrast it with the Zentradi and in this version, the Meltrandi as well, too, where their entire society is just about war and killing each other. But anytime I've seen this show with anyone else in my adult life, they always think this is like the best date idea ever, the best place to take a girl where you get to try on all these different outfits together and stuff. And here's these great shots of, what could be, right? In their wedding attire together. And there was one or two moments where I got to use these shots in the Robotech videos where I'm talking about, is their relationship good? Maybe not. Maybe it's not real. And then poof. And here's another dub part where you can't hear anything in the Japanese version, but in English he's like, look, there's a motel. She's all upset at him. He's like, oh, but we could. And here she's starting to get recognized by somebody. So I tweaked the sound a lot, and here I think I pulled up this sound, and then I had to lower it again for this music. That shot of them running is probably the most ridiculous shot in the movie, but I guess the point is that the whole night's been so cool and romantic, and it's such a whirlwind with the feelings they have and everything around them. So it's a shot that I respect a lot more as a grown-up than I did as a kid. As a kid, it just looked dumb. This observation park is really beautiful. Like even the wall design behind there, all the comm towers out the window. It's great just to see Minmay also just, I mean, this is what she wants. She's a young person, and she's found this other young person, and she wants to be with them and have a normal life, and sounds like she got in over her head with her dream to become a star. But they're using maximum use of Saturn's rings. That shot right there of Rick looking at her, I got to use that extensively in my videos. It's a great shot that illustrates their feelings for each other, where she's always looking out beyond, but he's only looking at her. Again, not the healthiest relationship, but certainly one of the more understandable ones. This is probably a great way to get the two of them together and have that orange Veritech sort of give them, you know, an action scene together. Now, I'm not totally sure what this is. I guess he kicks up all the space dust from the rings, and that dust kind of creates that halo with the sun behind it. I don't know, it's kind of a weird shot right here. It's pretty, though, and you can see all the dust spiraling around. But Rick definitely knows how to show a girl a good time. Rick. I told you, I'm going to do it forever. Just, if you're not used to it by now, if you're not going to forgive me for it, then I don't know what to tell you. So here, I think, is the introduction of Badolza, our actual main antagonist. It's kind of an interesting idea. Again, with the Zentradi redesigns, Badolza becomes, Dolza becomes kind of a giant living computer hooked up to his super huge cactus ship. But he orders them to capture some of the micro-humans, the microns. But they have to do it quick because there's supposed to be some of the women's fleet are around. I get it narratively why, they talk about the supervision army in the Macross TV show, and you never really see him except for that one derelict ship. And they thought that the SDF-1 was a supervision army ship that they were chasing, instead of like Zor's Battle Fortress or whatever. But, they were sort of an enemy you only hear about, and nothing ever really comes of them. I think even later in Macross you don't get to see them. So to have this version now where it's the men and the women fighting each other, again, narratively it makes sense, but it's also kind of, I don't know, just sort of frustrated me as a kid. It was all these little differences that confused me, but I suppose if it wasn't for the need of procreation and they were always fighting each other in a culture, maybe this is exactly what would happen between men and women. I don't know. This was definitely a scene cut out where she sings Sunset Beach, and one I didn't see until I was older and I was a teenager, and I got a hold of the real version of this show, which still had the Hong Kong dub. But at least it had all these missing scenes in it too, and I got to hear more Minmay songs I hadn't heard before up to that point. But Sunset Beach is actually one of my favorites. I think I put it in my final Macross video too in the background. I tried to throw in more actual Minmay music into that one. Lisa's helmet looks a lot like the one for her design in the TV show. But all the non-combat people are all wearing orange. I don't know if that's just because it was such a prominent color in the late 70s and early 80s, or maybe there's a space reason for it, or maybe it's just a contrast with the kind of blues and blacks of space. And of course, there's Kaifun. See, she calls him brother in this version. And why he's out with Misa of all people? I mean, obviously it's a bit of a plot contrivance to get everyone together. But it is kind of strange that they're the ones that go out in a shuttle to go get them. Maybe Misa wanted to do it because she didn't want the tabloids to get a hold of it, or there to be some record of it because it's such a scandalous thing. But either way, here's my favorite musical piece of this show, and one of my favorite action scenes. There were a lot of new original music made for this, and I think it had a different composer for those things, for these pieces than it did for that did the Macross TV show soundtrack. And even though you get some of the original TV show music in this movie, it has some of these original scored pieces that are amazing, with The way these violins are and the horns, like everything's so space operatic. And the score is really good, really worthy of anything that, because Star Wars obviously had been out at this point and was one of the biggest influences on all of movies ever. So it seems like they're trying to emulate that score, and I think it's very effective. And the way they time it out, too, with some of the action right here. Of course, Hikaru doesn't have any weapons on this dual-seated training vessel. But fortunately, Roy Foker's there. My man. A man needs all of his courage. This is another one where we say all the time, "You've been drinking." And we say this to each other. So what? You can still fight when you're drunk? The thing is, he really can still fight, because look at him. Some of the best Itano circuses, which is what you call the missiles going around, because the one animator, I forget his name, but one of his names is Itano, his surname. They started calling that style of missiles an Itano circus because it's just so crazy. And of course, now it's a staple in like all of anime. And him going Yahoo and taking out all these guys left and right. And Roy is the man in any series, in any continuity. He is just super cool. Of course, he's like, oh no, Shimata! There's no way he's gonna let them get captured. Got ship rising up out of the rings. I say every shot in this movie is just amazing. This one right here where Skull One transforms. It's so good. And of course, with the best of intentions, he goes in and he is just immediately outnumbered and outgunned. And you can see the reflection as he turns his head. There's that shot, if you go back and look at it, you're seeing his face, but in the reflection on his helmet, you can see that the Valkyrie's head was turning to look at all these bad guys, and the silhouettes of them all are reflecting on his helmet. And it's just little things like that in this show that you notice when you're trying to edit it together or grab shots to put into other, my other videos. And there's so much care put into all of this. Yeah, and there's Exodor hooked up to the pod. Their alien technology is just weird. It makes the backgrounds look weird. It's kind of more unsettling and sort of reminds me of the inside of Unicron a little bit from the Transformers movie, just where nothing is symmetrical and nothing makes sense. And I guess it's supposed to give you that feeling of that unsettled feeling, just viscerally. It's still a good interrogation scene, though. I think ultimately I don't like it as much as in the TV show when they get brought before Dolza and they're all on that big conference table and Rico, Kanda, and Braun are there. But, you got to kind of trim the fat a bit when you're making a movie compared to a TV series. This movie's overall satisfying, but I wonder how it would play with someone who'd never seen the TV series and was, new to this entire world. Because I have to think that all of this would make more sense and be more enjoyable when you've actually watched the fullness of the series and been able to get all those nuances, especially in the relationships of everybody. But Kai-Fun he's just a very different character in this one, and I guess here he's trying to protect Minmay from these pilots. They're such hot shots. And maybe in this version he doesn't like military either. He's just kind of a different guy. He's got a different haircut, obviously. But he's kind of quick to jump to kiss his own sister. I mean, it's kind of weird enough when they're cousins, and they never really say how close of cousins they are. And I don't know, I'm sure there's some official thing out there that really states it. But it's like I say in, I think it's episode 14 or so, that it's best just not to think about it. Hey, we're all kind of doing that because we know they're somewhat related. So we all have that look when they kiss. It's probably right up there with Luke and Leia kissing, I guess. So that's a shot I was able to use in an episode. But yeah, in this one, like the emotions are so much stronger because they kind of have to be for a 2-hour thing instead of a 20-hour thing. Series. But that's the last you see of Minmay for a minute, and the last they see of each other. And, their infatuation with each other, because I don't think it's really true love at this point, is really strong. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I remember having times like that in my life, where especially when you were that, a teenager, that those feelings were so crazy and new, and you felt the strong bond with it, with that significant other. But they definitely magnify that in this movie, even beyond what the TV show did. So we finally get a glimpse of the women, and so here they come in their quadranos. Yeah, except for the male power armor, the female quadrano armor wasn't really changed at all, except for the coloring into red. And that just goes to show you what a classic design it is. Kind of like how the Valkyries are pretty much kept the same as the TV show. And they just got a couple of different tweaks in them in that. And here we get Hikaru and Misa's first kiss in this version. And it's Roy's idea, of course, because he's telling her to always be more aggressive when it comes to making a move. And it's effective. Unless she smacks him. Bam. And she's like, whatever, just get ready for takeoff. He didn't have to slap me. But see, his mind is still on Minmay at this point. Sorry, just enjoying the shots of the mecha moving around like this. So in the version I grew up with, the show cut right there. And you can see why, because this part gets ultra violent. Here's another place where I kind of thought about maybe doing a couple of visual edits just to maybe get rid of some of the gore and stuff. But I finally decided I better keep this as pure as I could, or else people are going to riot. So like I say, there's only one visual change I made, and it'll come up later in the movie. That shot's just cool. Actually, when I had Clash of the Binoids and I was 16, there's Miria, yeah. And here you get to see just how ruthless she is. I'm glad they keep that for this movie and really put it on full display. But when I was a kid, I was 16, I had a girlfriend, and I'm watching this at her house, and then her older brother came, who was 22, and he seemed all sophisticated and old, and he was married with a kid on the way. And he comes and watches this with us, and he's the one who told me, hey, I think I've seen this before, but I think they cut out a bunch of stuff right here. And he's actually the one who described to me what happens with Roy here in a second. Because Roy, it turns out, if you look at, I think it's the credits or the cast list or something. Okay, so Miri's going to disappear here, and then I'll get to my point. So they see the women for the first time, and they're like, wow, these guys are even tougher than the males. Of course, it's only right here when they see the pilot crawl out right before she dies that they realize, oh, it's women. Men and women are fighting each other. No wonder they're freaking out that we're all together. Us micro-humans. So there's a big revelation for them. Rick, what's going on? Yeah, we're all wondering that. Okay, so this guy, like I said, according to the credits, this is supposed to be Chiron. Now, what's his name in Japanese? That's escaping me for the minute. But, so this is Chiron's kind of cameo. It's sort of cool that it gets to be him and Roy that fight each other in this version. Yeah, seeing the damaged skull one, then he comes out and he's almost like Britai fighting Rick in episode 10 or 11? I think it's 11. In this version, you actually get Chiron versus Roy instead. Of course, Roy goes out like a total man. But my girlfriend's brother described the scene to me, because in the other version, he just gets smashed, and then it cuts to, say goodbye to Claudia for me. But then her brother would tell me, no, he grabs his gun, he puts it behind the guy and fires. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. And then it was only a couple years later, I got my hands on the full movie and got to see it, and realized, oh, he wasn't making that up. That was true. But here, so when we watched this movie, we watched it the same night after we watched the episode where Roy died. So it's like I had to see it twice in one night. It's a little much for an 8-year-old to handle. Love it. He tells her, "You're too heartless." He's like, "What? Are you made of stone?" But he can see in her eyes that, she feels it too, but she has a duty to perform. There's a transmitter attached to Minmay. It's like, wait a minute. Has that always been on her just because she's a celebrity? Is that how you guys found them and Saturn's rings? It actually brings up a couple of questions that beg to be unpacked. But It's cool of Rick tearing through in his Gerwalk mode. This really is heart-wrenching because, it's one of those things where she's right there and he's, they almost have each other and she's obviously anxious to be rescued and to see him, and he gets to be her white knight, and then this happens, and like I said, this movie is dire, and maybe when I was a kid, I think that was the aversion that I had to it to some degree, was the TV show was at least fun, even though it has, some heavy moments and some very grown up kind of themes. But this movie, like, it really pulls at your heartstrings in a really strong way. And it's a way that especially anime of the time was really good at doing, but I think as a kid I wasn't super prepared for it. We got, I think probably the biggest example is that we got at the video store was Arcadia of My Youth with Captain Harlock. Probably the saddest show I've ever seen. I love it. I watched it a couple of years ago. I found it, I think, on Amazon Prime, and it was the old dub that I grew up with too. And I remember I sat there, not even on the couch, I sat on my ottoman and right in front of the TV and watched the whole thing. So I was just entranced by it, and I probably had tears in my eyes the entire time because that one is bleak. That one is dire, but also the message of it is so strong. Captain Harlock is one of the great heroes of all of anime. And, well, maybe he's an anti-hero. I don't know how to categorize him exactly. But, he's certainly up there with any of the crew from Macross. So here's another thing, is watching this as a kid, we'd only gotten as far as the episode where Roy dies, which is like the halfway point in the series. So I still didn't know that this is what happens to the Earth in the TV show. So, of course, this felt really shocking and really depressing. And especially when they see the Prometheus here coming up. But yeah, it's like when they're together on the Earth in the TV show, and they just have a moment on the surface, and they're mostly just happy to see each other again by that point in the show. In this version, there's none of that happy reunion moment. And of course, instead of the SDF-1 showing up a couple hours later, in this version, they have to wait a month. But of course, that's all important to the development of Hikaru and Misa's relationship. But we get a couple of great shots of the Valkyrie in action here. And it's fun because you get to see them use the Valkyrie as a tool and as a vehicle instead of just in battle. Yeah, there's the Prometheus. And yeah, that shot was haunting because I knew what that aircraft carrier was from the TV show. And of course, in this version, I put at the beginning that you get to see it get destroyed. But here, it kind of jumps out at you in that great shot that they just did, even with the two different plates parallaxing against each other. It was the camera pulls back. And of course, when they start going inside it here in a minute, you actually get to see some of the people that are dead inside. It's like, it's just a scary show when you're a little kid. And here we get to see Badolza's giant flagship, which looks... I need to see this movie on the big screen sometime. I got a friend with a projector. I need to go over to his house and really watch it that way. Because some of these shots are just begging to be on a giant, movie screen, maybe even an IMAX screen. But of course, right here, they're setting up all the different inner chambers so that you can see, see the final battle and watch a certain Valkyrie pilot go flying through them to attack his target. Britai, that's probably the most Britai looks in this show, in this movie. Just standing there with his arms crossed. So cool and stoic. This is a nice song to hear in the Japanese version. In the Hong Kong version, it's just her humming. And I like the song she sings in Japanese, but I feel like it's far more haunting with the humming that she does in the English version, in that Hong Kong dub. Yeah, the way they grab at their noses, like, or that Misa does, and you see the bodies, and you can just imagine the smell, and it's just, everything is just horrific. I mean, it makes you realize why she's Misa really loses hope, and she gets so depressed, and like she can't do it. So Hikaru has to go in and try to scavenge for food, and of course he only finds a few cans of whatever. He mentions that everything's irradiated, and they have to take anti-radiation, medication. I think they were doing the same thing with Hilo and Boomer and some of the characters on Battlestar Galactica when they were still stuck on the planet after it got bombarded at the beginning of the series. And actually, if you've never seen that early 2000s Battlestar Galactica, it's a great show. And even the guy who created it, Ronald D. Moore, he cites Robotech, MACROSS, as a lot of inspiration that he took from that as he made Battlestar Galactica. And you can see the influence of it. So this was another whole scene. No, well, maybe this was in the original dub that I saw. But you do get to see a couple different commanders that kind of look like Ritai. It kind of alludes to the fact that these are, more of these cloned people that are genetically created for these special purposes to be commanders or to be advisors like Exodore. Again, it just shows a much more weird, organic, alien race than what we get in the TV show. And that's cool. It's just that, they make such a big deal in the show, too, that they're genetically identical to humans. And, other than the militaristicness of it, it's not like they were that far off, except for, being giant as well. So maybe I feel like they're just a little too alien, a little too different in this to hit that story point. But it's still cool visually. But I know they made the decision, the people making Macross shows, to use the designs from this, including all these character designs, more than any of the ones from the original TV show. And again, that's really cool all the way up except for the Zentradi. I really just kind of prefer the TV show designs all around. So it looks like Badolza has a plate that has musical notes on it. And he's not sure what it is. I don't know if he flips it around right here to show the other side of it, or if he cleaned it up or something. It's always been kind of weird to me. But yeah, so these are supposed to be the musical notes for, the song for the ending of the show. And of course, later in the city that rises up from the ocean, Lisa's going to find another plate that has the lyrics. And it's a bit of a contrivance, a bit too coincidental, but it's okay because the show it's fine. But they match up, Misa realizes that the lyrics match up with the music that's on that plate, and that's how you get your Oboete Masuka. And here Hikaru mentions that Alaska base itself was filled with lava. That seems like almost a more horrific fate than what we see of it in the TV show, where we get to see Lisa's father die in front of her eyes. And, apparently the whole thing just got flooded with lava. And right now, where are they? I think they're in Tokyo, or did he mention Paris? But anyway, the whole world looks like this. And being in the red hues, it's clearly just supposed to be hell. They're in hell. That's the visual subtext there. So this is kind of interesting because they have a tent kind of made underneath the ship, underneath their, aircraft. And it's not too dissimilar from in the TV show, and it's Hikaru and Minmay in a tent. In that one, it's made out of his parachute underneath the Mockingbird, underneath his fan jet. I call it the Mockingbird. I think it was only called the Mockingbird in the Robotech novels, but you know the plane that I mean. The one that Hikaru shows up on in Macross Island. I remember Bash and Matt looking at that fish and saying, like, what is that, some kind of mutated piranha? I wouldn't eat it. But it probably tastes as disgusting as it looks. She's pretty brave to try it here in a minute. You can see why she doesn't want to. Depression aside. So, of course, here we get to see the strength of Hikaru. And she's kind of wallowing in her own self-pity. She's just got all this hopelessness. And again, you get the idea that this is so much more of a dire feeling, a dire tone, than what the TV show has. And here, Misa is really feeling it full force. She mentions 10 billion people being killed in a matter of an instant. It's like, yeah. And she was trying to prevent that in the TV show. But here she doesn't even get a chance to. She just gets to see the aftermath of it. It's like, even if the Macross comes back, what hope do we have of surviving if we got these aliens tailing us? I mean, it really illustrates just the hopelessness of it all. So, of course, he puts that handkerchief on her forehead, which we get to see the importance of here in a minute. And Misa starts pointing out that she's like, where do you get your strength from? I guess it's from the fact that you've been alone ever since your father died in an accident. And he's so matter-of-fact of it. He's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. He messed up doing some air acrobatics and boom, he crashed. She's almost surprised at how just lightly he can talk about it. But she almost starts getting charmed by him and getting to know him as a person. So by this point, you get the idea they've been together for, what, maybe a couple of weeks? And it's only now that she's finally opening up to him as a person, you know? And she's been saying about how strong he is and how none of this bothers him. But then she sees it's the same handkerchief that Minmay autographed earlier when her and Hikaru first met. And here she realizes, oh, he does have somebody. He does have someone he needs to be strong for. He has Minmay who's out there, and she's probably dead, and he's obviously feeling it too. And so she realizes they're both suffering, and now she starts finding strength to eat again, to live, and that they both need to survive. Just, I don't know, they find strength in keeping each other going. But that's the difference in this version versus Robotech. Is in Robotech, in the Macross TV show, they do have their own adventures together and have to survive together. But in this one, I think it's very telling that they survive together for a solid month with no one else in the universe, like no one else in the world. And it's just the two of them. And they start out hating each other, but relying on each other, and then also getting to know each other in moments like that, you know, more emotionally intimate moments and personal moments. That's how they fall in love. And again, that's, I think, in my opinion, what makes it so much more of a healthy relationship compared to any of the, you know, attraction or love felt by Minmay and Hikaru, especially in this movie version. So this city, they'll talk about here in a minute, but it came to the Earth, I think, 20,000 years ago, trying to escape a lot of the wars that were happening to the proto-culture at the time. I might have some of this a little wrong, but because, like I say, it's, between all the continuities and Robotech and all this other stuff, some of it gets a little jumbled in my head. But this is where we kind of get the history of things. As far as Macross is concerned, it's a different history than what Robotech decided to do when it had to suddenly blend Mospita and Southern Cross into its run. But yeah, just the fact that they realized that this is kind of where they realized the aliens aren't much different than us. They had a culture. They weren't just big, scary, you know, warmongering monsters. It's great that that's really telling that she runs to him and like grabs his shoulder like that, you know. Shows how comfortable they are with each other and also kind of how much she sort of likes him at this point. So they don't come right out and say it, but she clearly likes to study languages, and as an officer or part of the communication, she's been trying to study the Zentradi language, probably based on the communications they've been intercepting or hearing. So she speaks a little bit of Zentradi, which is probably close to whatever this proto-culture language is. So she's trying to respond to the computer, and she understands a little bit about what it's saying, and this is where you get the idea of genetic engineering versus natural birth, which is what the Zentradi use to procreate. Well, the computer starts freaking out. All it does is it reads Hikaru and Misa there, and because of that, it says something about raising the city. But, you know, she still has more questions. I don't know if it runs out of power there, or diverts all power to be able to raise the rest of the city. Yeah, it says, in the subtitles, it says using the city's last energy reserves. So the computer had to shut down in order to raise itself. So she doesn't get to ask it any more questions, and, you know, they don't even really get much of a chance to excavate or search it out, which I'm sure really bothers the anthropologist side of Lisa. But here she starts giving a history about, everything that she's kind of piecing together from the little bit that she saw with the computer and what it said to them. Where she's talking about what this proto-culture was, this great ancient society. And you do get to hear more about it as MACROSS goes on. I think MACROSS Delta did a lot to expand on what the proto-culture is, especially with the Windermerians and, the galactic songstress, I think it was, that was, kind of the Minmay of her time. That I think they allude to Minmay maybe being a descendant of or something, but they have that one clone who's the lead singer of the Valkyrie song group that's all Sailor Moony and stuff. I'm probably talking gibberish to anyone who doesn't know MACROSS Delta, but here I put in this extra shot of what the city looked like, and it's also from MACROSS Delta episode 19. And then I go right back to the movie, because I didn't want to cover up any more of this movie than I can help. But I thought that was an important thing to actually see what this city looked like in its heyday. Something that I'd been waiting 40 years to see, because I only just saw MACROSS Delta, in the last year or two. Even the designs of the city are really cool. They remind me of something out of maybe a Final Fantasy game, like Final Fantasy VII, with some of the rendered backgrounds in that, of like the City of the Ancients and stuff. It looks like you can tell they're in some kind of destroyed town square. That's probably some kind of fountain. But it's just Hikaru and Misa, they not only get to survive together, but they make all these discoveries together. They just find so much common ground, and them sitting here together is a lot like the scene in episode 12 of Macross, where they're kind of sitting in the inner works of Britai's ship, and Rick even throws a rock into the water just like he does in that scene in episode 12 of Macross, when they talk about the history of, who are these people and where do they come from? So there's a lot of mirroring and mimicry of the original TV show. A lot of callbacks that way. Little subtle things. So here was another thing that emotionally as an 8-year-old I didn't get, but certainly makes a lot more sense now that I'm an adult. So she finds this plate, obviously being interested in languages and trying to decipher the Zentradi language. She's interested in figuring out what all this is about. She knows just enough to get the first line. Do you remember? When your eyes met mine. But to her, it's more complicated than the Zentradi language. So she's like, things to look at later. But you can tell that not only are they kind of researching this place, but in, Misa's mind, she's kind of looking for a place to hole up and maybe make a little home of, because she just misses those old things. It's kind of bringing out this, I don't know if it's part of a biological ticking clock or something. I think she just misses society and misses the simple things of it so much, as we'll see here in a minute when she breaks down over it. Yeah, the design of this house and this kitchen, you can see how nice it must have used to been. But it's just kind of interesting to think that even this other culture that's, thousands of years old, even now in real life, we can find ancient things from ancient cultures that just kind of denote the fact that all of these cultures still had homes. It still had families. It still had these things that bring us all together. We come together over food, over dinner, so over these plates and cups, and just starts really eliciting that feeling within Misa. But I think that's one of the beautiful underscored messages of this show, is the fact that deep down inside, we're all the same. No matter your culture or language or history or anything, it all boils down to being together with your loved ones and family and coming together. And war and conquest, none of that stuff is as important as just, getting along and living your life and loving one another. Kaerimasai. Tadaima. But so Hikaru's probably either thinking she's cracked or he's willing to play along, because he knows that she needs this. Hikaru in this version is much more intuitive, especially with the women in his life and knowing how to appropriately react. So yeah, you can see him just decide right there, like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Like this, she needs this. I'm doing this for her. So, it's a weird moment of make-believe, but it's also very tender too. Again, you can see as an 8-year-old where this was confounding to me. I'm like, what is happening? But I get it now on an emotional level. The fact that they cheer as each other and, you know, they're sort of pretending and playing it. Remember what life was like. All of society is gone now. Nobody has this anymore. And it finally just hits Misa. And she misses it so much and tells him, I want to go back. And, you know, how else should he comfort her? Especially as she opens up like this. Like, all her walls are broken. This is her just, you know, being her real true self and being so heartbroken. And here he is being strong for the both of them. And she just appreciates that so much. And I think they both just need this human connection. And they've really fallen for each other, I think, at this point, too, where they've had to travel the wastelands together. So finally, they just decide to embrace this and give each other a moment of happiness. So this fade to black right here, I actually fade to white and then to black, and I extended it just for a couple of seconds because I think that moment needs a little longer to breathe. So that is one change I made in my my personal perfect edition here. Very small, subtle thing, but I think it's effective. There's something about the clouds on this earth that I really like. I don't know if there's just a weird post-apocalypticness to them or something, but they just look so crazy with that weird stretched out chunk between, you know, the two kind of normal looking cloud halves. Like these big weird hamburgers. But it's great that they have this night together. Hope they start feeling hope. And then you get to see this great shot of the MACROSS just looming as it caught their transmission and comes to find them. And it's great that he kisses her there. I'm really happy about that. He didn't kiss her enough in the TV show, honestly. SDF-1. MACROSS. Oh, I shouldn't try to emulate the way they're pronouncing things, sorry. I do like he's got almost the same scale ship of the SDF-1 of the MACROSS on his desk, on Gloval's desk here, as the one that I've got, the Yamato version. That's the 1/3000th scale. It's one of my favorite pieces that I have in my little collection of figures. I saw a fan dub of this that one of y'all, somebody commented on an episode a long time ago and told me about a fan dub done in the early days of YouTube. So I finally went to check it out, and it was not amazing. And really makes me miss just the Robotech cast. But one of the interesting choices they made in it was Captain Global, Gloval, depending on how you're, you know, which version you're watching. They gave him a bit of a French accent when he was talking to them. And I'm like, well, that's definitely a different choice than Russian, I guess. And this is such a sad moment. The music here is from the TV series, and it's the same music they play when the Zentradi attack the Earth and blow the crap out of it. But they use it right here when you see Claudia, you know, being told of Roy's death, and it's, I don't know, it always really hits me really solidly right in the heart. I do like the pictures that are behind her too, where you see, you know, spacecraft being built, and there's almost a shot of Attila Island with the MACROSS being reconstructed on it as it was, you know, being retrofitted for micro-humans, for the Micronians, for humans. So contrast the wastelands they've been in and even that broken city, that broken ancient city, and the two of them get to come on and see civilization again and see real people for the first time in a month. I think it's hard to gauge just how good that would feel. Plus you get these great glamour shots of MACROSS City and how what a great design it is there. Even little girls running past him, you know, it's all these important moments. And then you get to see the gigantic screen of Minmay really hitting Rick right in the face. So at this point, they think she must be dead or at least lost to them forever somewhere out in the galaxy. You know, I think Misa even puts it that even though Miss Minmay's somewhere far away, her songs are still being played. And she feels close. And the song that they're singing is, I think it's Silver Moon, but it's one of my favorite Minmay songs. They sing it a lot in the TV show, and it's really catchy. So this moment where Rick is looking at Minmay, Hikaru is looking at Minmay, and he has a moment to really consider her and consider everything and his feelings for her. And he talks about how really, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels like it was forever ago. And he looks over at Misa. Right here is such an important moment of them looking at Minmay on the screen. And then Hikaru is looking at Misa. And he calls back to that moment later in the show, and it's one of the most important moments in the whole series, probably in all of Macross. But we'll talk about that when we get there. So here we get to see one of the cool women's ships. And reportedly, the SDF-1, the Macross, was built off of one of these kind of ships or a similar one of it, a Meltrandi gunship. At least in this version of it. It was a Supervision Army gunship in the Macross TV show, but I think moving forward, they decided to kind of retroactively say that it was a Meltrandi ship. That shot right there has been a background on my computer more often than not. I actually had a big printout of it made that was hanging on my kitchen wall in my last place. But this is one of the best scenes in the entire movie for obvious reasons. Even just that shot of them. You know, here's Skull Squadron's kind of shrinking with Roy gone, and it's about to shrink a little more. Poor Kakazaki. This shot, it shocked the heck out of me when I was a kid, too. It was so gory, this movie. It took my cute little Robotech, you know, and I just wasn't prepared for it as an 8-year-old. Right? Oh, don't look at the screen. There he goes. At least he dies laughing. We'll finally get this amazing Max and Maria battle in this. Again, one of those... I've taken this in my editing software and gone almost frame by frame through it to see the action, and there's almost not a frame that doesn't look like a masterpiece. It's so cool. And here, of course, they get to use some of the original fight, you know, battle music from the TV show instead of any new compositions for the movie. But it's so effective and just works great for this showdown. And they had a few sound effects here too that I didn't do. It was on the Blu-ray version of this. But you're probably hearing them now. And I did try to go through, and I think I mentioned I tweaked some of the levels here and there to make it a little more YouTube friendly, and just so you don't have to have like a 5.1 surround sound when you're watching it, but you can still enjoy some of the subtleties. So I brought up the quiet parts and kind of quieted down some of the louder parts. I did a little bit of that through here, I think. So you can see her hiding up above the door. I never saw that until I was older. I never noticed. But again, this scene where the lights are flashing on and off, it's totally worth going through. His Valkyrie is just getting wrecked, and you can see all these different holes in it. Same with her armor. I mean, it really, you know, it's really telling of like why they're both bloody when they exit their cockpits here, when you see them in a minute or two at the end of the battle. And like it just keeps going. Neither one of them quite landing a hit on the other. And then you get this crazy shot. I mean, nobody ever mentioned it's cool they do it through the cloud. I mean, it all just looks so great. But the fact they take out the SDF-1's main guns, like its main offensive capability, and you get the idea that they were gonna like invade the ship, that they were doing that so they could invade the ship, invade the island, get whatever clues or protoculture they could find in order to use them against the men, against the Zentradi. That seemed to be what Laplamus's, you know, Azonia, whatever her name is, what her plan was. And that shot of the SDF-1 crashed on the city. If you do go back and play that shooter that the opening video comes from, where they take off from the aircraft carrier, that shooter has a whole bunch of different levels, like sections around this part where the background is cool, and you actually see the SDF-1 crash like that. It's funny where Lisa hears Minmay's voice, and there's a lot behind her reaction to it of like, oh no, like she knows, she can tell what's coming on. Lisa's smart, Misa. But like even Max is kind of bloody on his face. And he tells her in Japanese, you know, mutsukushi, like beautiful. And she doesn't know what he said. She doesn't know what that means, but she repeats it. Mutsukushi? And then here's I like that command center on the females on the Meltrandi ship here. It's very cool if you pause it and kind of look at how the screens are. And they actually use it a couple of times in like at least the one episode of Macross 7 with the Women's Strongest Fleet or whatever. I forget the title of it. I think it came at the end of the series, where Basara basically makes a whole fleet of Meltrandi fall in love with them. It's an excellent episode. Probably the best one of Macross 7, one of my favorites. And of course, the Meltrandi run away when the entire full force of this Zentradi Badolza fleet shows up. And there's just some amazing cinematic shots of them coming up over the horizon here that you just want to savor the shadow that it casts over the land. I mean, look at that. And they're hailing them. The fact that they want to start peace negotiations, and of course Gloval's not going to turn that down. Look at that, though. And you kind of get to also get a glimpse of your final boss, for the whole show. So they set it all up really nicely for this movie. And just each one of those dots represents a ship bigger than the SDF-1. It's so cool. I was able to steal a couple of shots from this conference for when I had to talk about Gloval being a leader of the, of the Earth after the destruction of it. And, whenever he had to make announcements and stuff, I usually would slip in one of the shots from this in it. But this whole scene, it's another one where it's animated really well, and it took me a while to realize that the 3 Zentradi friends that he has over here that he's going to point to, they're all bald versions of Riko, Kanda, and Braun, or what's their names in Japan? Loli is Riko. I don't remember Kanda and Braun, sorry. But if you look at their facial structures and the character designs, it's totally them. They just don't have hair. And I understand that, taking away the hair off the Zentradi, because if you're a spacefaring race, you probably are just either going to evolve past hair, or, maybe they just get rid of it, or maybe they got rid of it out of their genetic code because, hair gets in the way of your spacesuit and stuff. But it definitely changes a lot of the aesthetic of the Zentradi and makes it a little harder to identify them individually, at least the ground level troops like that. Why is there a star duet? It's like Star Wars. I don't know what that shot is about the cats. I think one of the animators just really wanted to draw cats for some reason in that scene. But here's some great shots of this redesigned bridge. You got Vanessa and Claudia looking at each other. I mean, again, like in any character, any spot on the SDF-1 that you ever wanted to see in like high-res glory and just really well animated. It's all in this movie somewhere. You just got to know where to pause it. So here you got your cameo of the 3 spies. And they're about as goofy in this version as they are in the TV show. As they're playing with the Minmay doll and just kind of freaking out over... Is he writing something, or is he just messing with a pen like he's never seen one before? But it's nice they give him nice suits. It's a lot better than the bit of black cloth and twine that they cover him with in the TV show. So here's where you get a moment of Britai is actually breaking the rules watching this broadcast, because their orders are not to watch the reception of this. It's forbidden. And that's, of course, Badolza trying to control his troops, even at the high level of Britai, even at command level. But Britai doesn't care. He's just going to do his own thing. And it's just a little hint that there's more to him than just following orders. He's got his own interests. He's got his own agendas. But mostly he just wants to get to the truth of things and, do what's best. Right now, the 3 spies are talking about, yeah, we like the girls on this ship a lot more than the ones that we have to fight in space. And here, Britai's trying to tell Exodor the concept of a joke. And Exodor doesn't get it. But he's like, it's something Minmay taught me. And Exodor's like, freaking human culture. And of course, we get her big reappearance. And the first couple of notes that you really get to hear of the song at the end of Oboete Masuka. And she talks about the melody of it, but they don't have the words. But the melody was found with the Zentradi, and it's kind of the thing that inspired them to want to negotiate for peace, even though they have their own secret agenda. But they were never able to recover the lyrics, and of course that's what Lisa has in her possession. But Minmay mentions how a lot of the best song lyricists are trying to find, make words for it, make words up. That's a great shot of Rick and Lisa just having tea in the green room before they have to go out on stage. And I get the idea they're both feeling the absolute tension of what this is going to do when Minmay sees him. And Hikaru most of all, because he's he's already right now really devoted to Misa. He's put Minmay behind him, and he says as much in a little bit. But I'm sure even Misa is really worried about how this is all going to play out with her. She was worried about that from the minute she heard her voice again being broadcast as the Zentradi fleet come in. So Minmay, she obviously didn't know anything about this moment. And she's looking around right now when she puts two and two together and realizes, what, Hikaru's alive? And then she sees him. And here's another shot that I was able to squeeze in every now and then for when I would talk about Rick and Lisa's relationship in the Robotech. Yeah, the apprehension on his face, it's so subtle. He's like happy to see her, but at the same time, I just heard tears welling up. So I did add one sound effect right here with the tear hitting the microphone. I just felt like it needed it. Because in the show it's silent, but I thought it was more effective to have, I don't know, I'm taking artistic liberties here, of course, but and it was just that sound effect, but I just slowed it down and changed the sound on it a little bit. But of the microphone, the feedback on it. I don't know. I don't have, complete logical reasons for why I do some of these little changes or add something. I just feel like it maybe does something a little more. In fact, I think with the microphone, that's how I remembered it. And when it didn't happen that way, I'm like, I'm going to make it fit my memory. Maybe that's not cool of me. I don't know. But yeah, just that shot of Minmay holding on to Hikaru, and he's not holding her back. And it doesn't take her long to figure out the way that Misa's staring at them, why he doesn't hold her back. And of course, she was there when Misa was taken too, and she figures out really quickly, like, ooh, they must have gotten together while I was with the Zentradi. It's kind of interesting seeing Misa's outfit there without the jacket over the yellow shirt part of it. It's kind of cool just to see how their uniforms are designed. Sarah, of course, she starts singing the lyrics that she's translating along with that song and figures out, there's no way these are the lyrics to that music. So Hikaru, being a big fan of Minmay, would have a poster of her hanging up. And yeah, he's thinking about it, but he's like, yep, it's time to take it down. But right before he can, she comes to the door. And the melodrama of it, the timing, it's so good. It's so effective. And of course, she's dressed up in an outfit to look as adorable as possible. And it's sad because she's so happy to see him, and she knows that, she has to turn on the charm in order to win him back or win him over. Like, she's not sure what has happened. All she knows is he didn't hold her back. And so she's going to make a big play for him because she's done nothing but think about him for the last month while she was captured. And there she goes. And he's so uncomfortable about it, but he doesn't, it's like, he cares about her too, but it's just, timing is everything in life, I guess. And he doesn't want to break her heart. That's what makes it all so hard and also so real, And she tells him right away, I love you. It's like the love bombing kind of comes out really strong. He's not paying attention, obviously, with the coffee running over. And of course, we turn up the tension a little bit by knowing that Misa's on her way. That shot I put into somewhere in the thing. I think when the SDF-1 was about to leave Earth and Lisa had to get the ship ready for takeoff and for Gloval's announcement. Oh yeah, right there. Okay, so even as a kid, I did get this. All of this stuff played, even being a little kid, I understood like the drama here. And that, again, just goes to show how well it's played out and how well this is staged. Even the lines that they say. I remember this whole scene really well in the English version. And actually, as badly acted as that was, and as bad as the dub can be, this scene is actually really well played out in it. Just the acting feels authentic, mostly from the fella who's doing Hikaru's voice. He's actually really good in this scene. And so is Minmay. The one doing Misa's voice, she's very good too, but you get a real powerful effect in the voice work for the guy doing Hikaru. I think he also did Max and a couple of the other voices in it too, if I remember right. Yeah. Misunderstand? Sorry, I just remember the dub so well. She's like, "You can't do this to me." It's like another sign of her immaturity. But. And the fact, and this goes to show how much Misa really cares about Hikaru, and she's like, "Run after her, I'll be fine." You know, even though she's super brokenhearted on it, taking pity on me just makes it even more insufferable. And he's like, "You're wrong." And he tells her this is one of the most romantic things ever, as he explains to her as they walked the uninhabited earth together. You know, and somehow they survived together. They relied on each other. They came together as one, you know, the way couples should. But he explains to her that when he saw Minmay singing in the city that day when they first walked into the city after being gone forever, he tells her that when he saw that thing of Minmay, that's why I said that look is so important, because he's like, it's right in that moment, that's when I knew that the one I want beside me for always, he says in the English version, "I just need you." I still feel the same way. She says, "Are you serious?" And he says to her, "I could die in battle at any time, but if you'll have me," he's like, "I'll be with you to the end." It's so perfect. And the fact that she's not used to feeling these emotions. She's surprised at herself that it's making her cry these tears of joy, you know. It's just perfect. It's so good. And there's a couple of those shots I found penciled versions of the animation there, and there's shots of her crying with those tears, and I use those for when she hears that Roy died and she realizes she has to go tell Rick, because it kind of added it in as almost like an extra scene in the episode 18 of my videos. It's so good. And again, I hadn't watched the TV show all the way through by the time I saw this, but I liked Lisa from the beginning more than I liked Minmay, so to see them get together in this movie really won over my heart. Of course, you get a little positive with them getting together, followed by a quick negative and some conflict to drive the plot along. These are great shots of the pilots and the ships all in the bottoms of the Armor 1 and 2, or Armor 1 and 10, whichever one they are. You get these great glamour shots of them putting on the strike packs. It's so cool. I only just recently got one of those Bandai Chokokin DX Valkyrie toys. Then I went ahead and finally blew a lot of money on to get it. But it's so good. They're so cool. It's one of the greatest designed mecha of all time. Closing up those windows that'll show up later. Oh no, that's the one that shows up later, right there. At the observation part. So here we get some great new scoring, new music that is in this movie coming up. When the women fleet arrives, when the Meltrandi arrive. So here's Dolza, but Dolza totally frustrated that his plans, you know, he has to accelerate his own plans and realizes, well, I guess we're not going to get anything out of this because here come all the women that want to take it first. So this is where Dolza just decides to blow up the whole city and the Macross, kill everything, kill everyone. And he's just done with it. He's like, all right, if Laplamas is going to challenge me, then I'm just going to meet that challenge and blow them all to smithereens. But yeah, the score right here is really, really good. It's really very exciting as the battle starts going. But I quite like the designs of the women fleet, actually, even more than the Zentradi one. I think those are some really cool additions to the mecha designs. So Rick's going off to find Minmay. Rick. I told you I'd do it for the whole time. But Dolza decides, like, yeah, all right, fine. We're just going to blow up the whole lot of them. The humans, the women. I'm done. I don't care anymore. I'm a giant computer brain, man. I don't really feel or think anything normal, so... And that shot of Gloval, I think I used in a couple of places in my videos. So this is the first time seeing this movie before the TV show that I saw that there are Zentradi ships where half of them can open up, like the SDF-1 does when it fired its main gun in the first episode. And I thought it looked dumb at the first. But now I think it looks really cool, those particular kind of Zentradi gunships. It's the same kind that Chiron attacks Macross City with at the at the end of the Macross saga of Robotech. You know, the Macross TV show, of course. Yeah, there goes that city. I'm sure they would have had a great time researching it if Budolza hadn't blown it up. But even without its main gun, the SDF-1 is still just like, we're going to go meet this challenge head on. There's a Coca-Cola, a little advertisement for you. Of course, we still have the best product placement, the blink and you'll miss it one coming up. So yeah, that's Lop Lamas. That's supposed to be Azonia for Robotech fans. She's a big living supercomputer too. Here comes the SDF-1, the Macross, charging into battle. One ship against a whole fleet of Zentradi and Meltrandi. Now in my 40s, watching Rick run up all these stairs actually makes me feel tired just looking at it. It's great having all these lasers come through. I think coming up... No, it's actually coming up later. I'll tell you the one shot that I altered. Yeah, these Veritech pilots really got to be into shape. So I think I'd be stopping, maybe it's, you know, just my asthma or something like that, but I'd probably make it up about 3 flights of stairs and have to stop and breathe for a while. Just be like, you know what, this Zentradi could just blow up the whole ship at this point. I don't even care. I'm tired. But you get to see a little more of the design of this observation park and just the amazing details in the background as Hikaru comes up the stairs here. But it's so sad to see Minmay go here, and she just wants to be alone. She even hears the battle, and she just doesn't care. Like, at this point, she's, you know, her heart is broken, and she probably wants to die. Or, you know, she doesn't care if she dies in battle, let's put it that way. But yeah, even just looking at the, you know, the way that the stairs all come in, you can see the city behind him. And she's so touched by this, but she's also apprehensive. And I mean, he is happy to see her, and he wants what's best for her, but he also needs her, and he knows how this is going to play out before he even asks her. But she's kind of enthralled and kind of willing to accept that he chose her over Misa, but then he's like, yeah, I need you to sing this song. And you see how, like, offended she is. Oh, this whole thing is really heartbreaking. It's really touching. Pretty amazing shots of the Zentradi fleet. And they charge up their main weapon, but a lot of their own ships are still in the way. But this is how much Budolza doesn't care, you know, he has no empathy for anything. So even though he has tens of thousands of his own ships in the way, he tells them to go ahead and fire their, you know, his own ship's main gun. And he must kill, I mean, each one of those ships must have thousands of people on board, so he must kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of his own people to fire this one shot, which, to be fair, this shot is pretty effective and definitely takes out Lop Lamas. Pretty cool death scream from her. And then we got to see the two of them as the battle gets more dire outside. We get more to this intimate moment. But even she's feeling the hopelessness of it. But despite how hopeless it might seem and what his love life is like and everything else going on, I mean, Hikaru, he has a mission. He knows what's right. He knows what he needs to do. And he tells her, it's not just about us. It's about everyone on board the Macross. She's like, who cares? Why aren't we the only 2 people in this world? I mean, she's almost jealous of the fact that the 2 people that got to be alone together were he and Misa. And it's like Minmay almost wants to fantasize over that. And when he slaps her, the fact that he feels so bad about it, like he clearly hates himself for it, I guess makes it okay under the context, but it's still really shocking and kind of hurts me to watch every time. But he mentions, you know, his big brother Roy, Kakazaki, you know, Ben. He's like, they're all dead. And they must have had so many things they wanted to do. And he's like, but we're still alive. We have a chance. I mean, it's one of the more inspiring hero speeches that have affected me in my life, and something I try to keep in mind when I'm faced with challenges and kind of want to just give up. And I'm just like, no, I got to, you know. And I've even had friends that I've lost along the way in my life, and realized even the bad experiences I have, they didn't get a chance to have even those, you know, not to mention the happy ones. So sometimes you got to keep on living for those who couldn't. You get this nice silence of the battle outside and Minmay considering his words, only to be broken by this awesome shot of a Valkyrie. But that's it, and she finally makes her decisions and sees his words. And that says a lot about Minmay's character, that she listened to Hikaru, she sees the sense that he's making, and she realizes that her dream, her contribution that she can give to mankind, even in this dire times, if she can inspire that hope and help others want to live and push forward, and she says, that this is the path that she chooses. And she even says, my parents wouldn't be able to rest in peace if I didn't sing now. What was the point of me leaving them at that point? Yep, she agrees, and she says, I'll sing with all I've got. And as he passes, it's great because the music kicks up right here. And it's Hikaru inspiring Minmay to sing a song that was essentially written by Misa. So the dynamic of that in this movie is pretty cool, I think. Yeah, it's Hikaru's VF1S Valkyrie is the Chokokin I got, the Bandai Deluxe version. And I just recently got it. I still haven't taken the time to turn it into a Battloid because it's just such a experience to savor when you've got such a high quality piece in your collection, Plus, I haven't found the time. I'm barely finding time to do this commentary at 5 a.m. the day or two after Thanksgiving, so. And here's Max and Miria. I was so happy to see them when I finally got the full version of the show and realized, oh my gosh, Max is big. He doesn't have his glasses on, but that's him. He's big, and he's going to fly a Quadrano. It's such a great juxtaposition to her joining up the Defense Force in the TV show and flying a red Valkyrie. Of course, this hits hard to Britai, who's already questioning his own loyalty to Bedolza at this point. And it really is a good song. I know Maria Jima, that did the voice for Minmay, she did that when she was 16, and by the time they're recording this, she was 17 or 18, but she had a good career in Japan, and of course, it kind of fizzled out as sometimes that happens. And she ended up moving to the States, and I think she lived in Texas for a time, or LA, I read, back when she was doing the helping with the dub of Macross from ADV Films. But she said in an interview that I read at the time that they asked her, do you still sing any Minmay songs? She says, no. Well, I still sing that one. I still sing Oboete Masuka. Man, I hope I'm saying that right. Right here is one shot that I changed, because it shows the guy get beheaded, and it always bothered me as a kid, and I'm like, that's unnecessary. I can probably get rid of that without anyone noticing. But now you know, even if you didn't notice. So in the version I saw, Hikaru hands Minmay the song, and then it picks up from right here, and you miss a lot of little important moments. I think that's part of why this movie was kind of confounding to me, and I didn't like it as much as I probably should have back then. I'd watch it because I appreciated the animation, and sometimes I just wanted more Robotech, and this was the best I could get, because, Macross Plus and even Macross 2 that I didn't get till I was 13 or so. None of those really existed yet, at least in the States. So if you wanted more Robotech or more Macross, this is what you had. And it's incredible. It's great. It becomes kind of a music video at this point, but it's very cinematic, and they really go all out as you see these combined fleets of the Zentradi and Meltrandi and all the different mecha. And Bedolza can't believe that they're all daring to stand against him. So again, I saw this before I saw the TV show. Oh, here's Max and Miria. It's so great seeing the two of them together. Some of these glamour shots of Hikaru flying as Valkyrie. And it's worth kind of almost slowing down this scene and trying to watch the choreography of the battle too. But seeing Hikaru pull up next to Misa, now she doesn't mind that he's there protecting the bridge. She yelled at him at the beginning of the movie, but again, you get to see just how everyone's grown and come together now, and there's all these little subtle ways that it shows it. A couple of those shots are recycled from the opening battle, but I like the fact that these lasers kind of wave. There's like this weird weight to them as they bow as it moves around. So that Meltrandi ship gets to fire its main gun and at least carve out a little bit of a path for Britai's ship to come in. And then we get to see Britai's ship do something we didn't know it could do. Where the green part separates from the blue part, and it just becomes a giant gun. That's really cool. As the shot almost kills Britai and Exodor inside, he has it fire, and this is the shot that clears the pathway for the SDF-1 to get even closer. Like I said earlier in the movie, they show you the different layers, the different chambers of Badolza's flagship here. Now we get to see the SDF-1 do kind of what it does in the TV show, as it breaks through all these inner chambers, trying to make its way toward the core. And Rick is still there, just blowing. Hikaru is still there, just blowing away anything in front of the bridge, where both Minmay and Misa stand. So we get a few more missiles coming in. This is just one kind of weird shot where it comes up like this, and it's a bit jarring, where you can see the animation plate sort of get misaligned. Here we go. The fact that he salutes her there, it's such an iconic shot. And it's also the fact that he's saluting her, showing respect, too, that he didn't have for her before. And this part of the song I used to hum to myself all the time when I was a kid. I really loved it. Best glamour shot of the Valkyrie right there. So, again, if you blink and you miss it, one of these missiles looks suspiciously like a can of Budweiser. One of the worst kept secrets on the internet. But like I say, and somehow they cut out that frame from the Clash of the Binoids version. Right there. But then I saw it for the first time. I glimpsed it, and I had to pause the videotape at just the right time when I got the real version of the show. And pausing a videotape, kids, was no easy feat to get it on the right frame. Right here I added some sound effects. Right there was one. So that one's in the show, but then that one of the cannon coming down over the shoulder I added. And then I added in some gun pod sound effects there just to really accentuate the whole firing. So there's a little extra right there. Little extra for our perfect edition here on Here's Why It's Cool. And I quite like this. They give it a proper death scene. It's a proper video game boss death. You know, anytime you beat the main bad guy in a Final Fantasy game, they take their sweet time disappearing or crashing down. You know, especially back in like Final Fantasy IV, or I want to say Chaos was like that, and at least some of the renditions of Final Fantasy I. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about if you've ever played a JRPG. But still, it's kind of that interesting trope of we just have to take out the central core, and then the rest of the troops will stop fighting, or the rest of the ship will be destroyed. You know, and I guess it's a little bit of a Star Wars thing, a bit of a take out the center of the Death Star, and then the whole thing blows up. So, but that's movies for you. That's movie logic, and it works. Dang it, it's a formula, but it works. And I might have kept that a little longer of a whiteout right there before we fade back into to this shot, where I pumped up the sound there so you could hear that crumble, because it's really satisfying, the sound of it. And then I added a rumble for the SDF-1 back here, because in the original version it's all silent there, but I was able to kind of subtly stick in something just to give it a little more presence audibly. And this is the other part that was different in Clash of the Binoids, and that you just assume Rick died because, Hikaru died because you don't see him anymore. He's just kind of gone from the movie. So I was really happy to finally see this for the first time and realize, oh, okay, he's alive. It's fine. And there's this, right there, mid-transition, I stole that shot and put it in the Force of Arms videos when Rick and Lisa talk, and he says he's going to fly down to the Grand Canyon and go pick her up. I love that you get to hear the whole fleet cheer, men and women alike, Zentradi, Meltrandi, people on the Macross. And now we got these shots of the people on the Macross all just finally at rest, There's finally peace, and they just feel it. It's a great shot of Lisa taking off her comm. She's always flipping her hair in the show, too. You get these moments with her and Claudia. And the conversation they have here in a minute is really poignant. But even Captain Global is just like, oh, finally. No, I think I feel that shot now that I'm in my 40s. We get to see Vanessa without her glasses, I think, for the first and only time. And here's Kim just doing a good old cat stretch. And you realize, oh, those chairs can recline. Sammy's already out. Can't blame her. See, who's that bearded guy? There's all these weird character designs in the background. But the fact that the city's smashed, but yet the people aboard survived. There's another weird character design, that guy. You feel like they're just cameos of the friends of the animators or something. But this is an interesting line where Exodor tells Britai that there's another 1,000 fleets out there. And those are just the ones with mobile fortresses like Laplamas and Badolza. And Britai's like, yeah, but we shouldn't have a problem if we can defeat him with just one simple song. We have the power of culture. So it's all really beautifully written, handwritten. It is the lyrics, the English lyrics that you read subtitles for. But she turns around and there's this great moment between Minmay and Misa, where she's almost like challenging Misa. She walks up to her to get her attention. And Misa turns, and that look between the two of them, I don't know, make of it what you will. But there's an understanding or of competitiveness for just a second. And then Minmay's expression changes. But yeah, I mean, it takes the time to go back and forth a couple of times there. And Minmay standing on the stage then does this and just like presents the song. She's like, this is the song. This is what we just used to achieve peace and defeat an entire fleet of bad guys. As you hear the subtle piano music of it in the background. And it's like you don't know if she's claiming it or what. But she feels resolved to her feelings for Hikaru. And almost kind of gives Misa her blessing. And she's like, this song is for you. And Misa's almost like, no, the song, you made this real. This is our song. And they just have this great connection from that point. And you get to see that connection one more time in the flashback 2012. And of course, Claudia gets to ask her, she's like, what was that song? That was really wonderful. And Misa's like, you know, it was nothing special. It was just an old pop song. She says, a pop song? Just a song that became popular in an alien city tens of thousands of years ago. Just your ordinary love song. And again, there's a real message there of the whole series, that it's just these small and simple things, you know? It's kind of like what Gandalf says to Galadriel in The Hobbit and in that, where he's just talking about just the smallest person, the smallest things are what make all the difference against keeping the darkness at bay. So I opened this video with Minmay counting and doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I did that because you get this little bookend at the end. And of course, after the first version was released and Macross Flashback 2012 had been made in, I want to say like 87 or something, they added part of that to the ending of this movie kind of permanently, kind of retroactively. Because it used to just close out to the credits and you see the credits roll. But now you get at least a part of that farewell concert that Minmay gave before the Mega Road 1 takes off with all of them into space. Now, in the original cut that I made of this, I actually bookended it with the opening and ending of Macross Flashback 2012. But for some reason, the powers that be on the platform don't like me using too much of that. But you get away with it with this shot, with these shots, because I guess they're part of this movie. So the claims aren't so strong on it or something. I don't know how that works. When you make a video, you spend hours and hours making it, and then you don't know until you put it up and upload it if it's going to, you know, flag anything, and you have to make different alterations, and it's a real pain in the neck. But at least it let me keep this part of it from the actual Do You Remember Love Blu-ray. And I was really happy I could at least present that to you. But I had to change even where I put my little ending outros and things. But it's not bad. I'm just glad we get to hear this song. This is another one of my favorite Minmay songs that I hear in my head all too often. But I love the look of this concert too. I mean, when they made Macross, it was originally going to be 50-something episodes, and this was the intended ending, was to have a giant concert with Minmay and show the new SDF2, you know, the Mega Road 2. They were still designing things at the time when they were making the series, and show it lift off. And when it got cut down to 36 episodes, they didn't quite get that. They were just barely able to end the whole thing with Chiron and resolve the love triangle. But when they made the OAVs, in the compilation, the anthology of Macross Flashback 2012, they were able to commission this new animation that was bookending that DVD, that video. And so they get to use part of it here as you see the Macross being rebuilt. The main cannon on it is halfway being built and restored. And of course there's credits that roll in the real version of it, but I sort of just decided to end it here. And I'm really grateful that you watched this and that you all love this movie as much as I do and took the time to listen to this commentary. And thank you for listening to me and watching some of my thoughts on these shows, and here's why it's cool. Take one more second here to watch Min Mei fade out. Just such a beautiful movie, such a beautiful story all around. Thank you all.